Welcome back to our channel, Soap Opera Aficionados. Today is a spectacular day to dive deep into the glamorous, cutthroat world of Los Angeles fashion. Grab your favorite beverage and settle in as we unpack the latest explosive drama unfolding at Forrester Creations. Let's get right into the heart of the action. The hallowed halls of Forrester Creations have always served as a glittering battlefield, a place where the shimmering allure of haute couture frequently masks the brutal, unforgiving nature of corporate warfare and fractured family dynamics. The latest developments on a May 14th, 2026 episode of The Bold and the Beautiful deliver an absolute masterclass in this very specific brand of high-stakes, emotional destruction. As the dust begins to settle on the initial shockwaves of the ongoing power struggle, the narrative plunges us directly into the psychological depths of characters who are desperately fighting for their legacies, their pride, and, perhaps most tragically, their fundamental sense of being loved and validated. The battle lines have not just been drawn. They've been etched in stone, setting the stage for a corporate civil war that threatens to tear the Forrester and Logan families apart at the seams. At the absolute epicenter of this brewing storm is Steffy Forrester Finnegan, a woman who currently finds herself backed into a terrifying corner of her own making. For months, Steffy has operated with an unchecked, tyrannical authority, wielding her co-CEO title not as a tool for collaborative leadership, but as a weapon to marginalize her perceived enemies, most notably Hope Logan Spencer. However, as the consequences of her relentless bullying finally come home to roost, Steffy's reaction is a psychological marvel to behold. She cannot fathom the reality that Ridge Forrester, her father and historical protector, is actually entertaining the idea of asking her to step down from her executive throne. In her mind, she is the infallible savior of the company, the sole reason the fashion house continues to thrive. When Ridge gently attempts to navigate the treacherous waters of this conversation, Steffy's initial disbelief rapidly morphs into a volcanic, defensive fury that exposes the deep-seated insecurities lurking beneath her confident exterior. In a desperate bid to maintain her iron grip on Forrester Creations, Steffy resorts to a potent cocktail of historical revisionism and emotional manipulation. She vehemently reminds Ridge of her past triumphs, specifically weaponizing the memory of the time Bill Spencer executed a hostile takeover of the company. Steffy proudly proclaims that she was the one who fought tooth and nail to win the company back, painting herself as the ultimate guardian of the Forrester legacy. While her past contributions are undeniably significant, her current weaponization of them serves as a blatant smokescreen to deflect from her recent, catastrophic lack of professionalism. She arrogantly declares that Brooke Logan Forrester can be handed any superficial, ceremonial title she desires, but the co-CEO position is strictly off-limits. This uncompromising stance perfectly encapsulates Steffy's Queen Steffy complex, a deeply ingrained belief that she possesses a divine right to rule, regardless of her actual performance or the toxic environment she has cultivated. However, the conversation between Steffy and Ridge rapidly devolves from a tense professional executive meeting into an astonishingly childish temper tantrum. When Ridge attempts to justify Brooke's sudden ambition by drawing a parallel to the legendary Stephanie Forrester, suggesting that Brooke merely wants to be to him what Stephanie was to Eric Forrester, Steffy immediately tears the comparison to shreds. She sharply points out the historical inaccuracy of Ridge's romanticized analogy, reminding him that while Stephanie was undeniably the fierce, undisputed matriarch of the family, Eric was always the actual so running the business. Steffy's counterargument is sharp, but it ultimately leads her down a path of profound emotional immaturity. Instead of defending her position with metrics, sales figures, or strategic vision, Steffy reduces the entire corporate power struggle to a twisted metric of paternal affection. The sheer absurdity of Steffy's ultimate demand is staggering. She looks at her father, a man currently agonizing over the future of his company and his marriage, and demands that he prove his love for her by prioritizing her over his wife. She essentially tells Ridge that if he truly loves her, he will crush Brooke's ambitions and secure her co-CEO title indefinitely. By dragging the concept of unconditional parental love into a boardroom dispute over an executive title, Steffy exposes a profound, lingering childishness. She is no longer acting as a seasoned corporate executive defending her hard-earned position. She is acting as a petulant child, demanding that her father choose her over the wicked stepmother. This emotional blackmail places an unbearable weight on Ridge, forcing him to navigate a situation where any business decision he makes will be interpreted as a devastating personal betrayal. Ridge Forrester, a man who has spent the entirety of his adult life oscillating wildly between the women he loves, now finds himself entirely paralyzed by his own historical indecision and passive leadership. The fundamental tragedy of Ridge's current predicament is that it is entirely self-inflicted. For months, he has turned a blind eye to Steffy's escalating hostility toward Hope, enabling a toxic work environment because he preferred to avoid the discomfort of disciplining his daughter. Now, that avoidance has birthed a monster he cannot control. Ridge is deeply torn, caught in the suffocating crossfire between a daughter who is demanding his absolute loyalty as proof of his love, and a wife who is rightfully demanding a seat at the table to protect her own flesh and blood. Ridge's desperate attempts to placate Steffy with vague reassurances that she will one day run the company entirely on her own fall on deaf ears. He is trapped in an impossible dilemma, realizing far too late that his failure to act as an objective leader has transformed his family business into a war zone. While Steffy spirals into defensive paranoia and emotional blackmail in the executive suite, a completely different, highly strategic atmosphere permeates the spaces occupied by the Logan women. Brooke Logan Forrester and Hope Logan Spencer are no longer waiting passively for the Forrester executives to dictate their futures. They are actively, aggressively planning a corporate revolution. Hope, once the beacon of endless forgiveness and gentle compromise, has been fundamentally radicalized by Steffy's relentless, condescending bullying. The repeated shelving of her beloved Hope for the Future line has served as a brutal wake-up call, stripping away Hope's naive belief that hard work and a positive attitude would eventually be rewarded. She has realized that in the cutthroat world of Forrester creations, power is never freely given. It must be ruthlessly taken. Brooke, fueled by her daughter's fierce, desperate advocacy and the reawakening of her own dormant, formidable ambition, is a force of nature preparing to strike. The strategic mastermind session between mother and daughter is a masterclass in calculated offensive plotting. They are meticulously charting a new path forward, fully aware that their impending power play will send shockwaves through the entire industry. Brooke is not merely asking for a promotion. She is demanding a fundamental restructuring of the company's hierarchy to ensure that the Logan women can never be marginalized again. The juxtaposition between Steffy's entitled, defensive whining and Brooke and Hope's focused, offensive strategizing is stark and intentionally highlighted by the narrative. While Steffy relies on past glories and emotional manipulation to maintain her grip on power, Brooke and Hope are looking entirely toward the future, ready to burn the current system to the ground if it means securing their rightful place in the fashion world. However, the shockwaves of this impending Forrester civil war are not confined to the glass walls of the legacy fashion house. They're actively triggering a seismic panic across town at the newly minted Logan brand. Liam Spencer, acting as the unwitting harbinger of corporate doom, drops a massive, landscape-altering bombshell on Bill Spencer and Katie Logan Spencer. Just as Bill and Katie are basking in the phenomenal, global success of their debut fashion collection, Liam arrives with the chilling news of Brooke's aggressive power play and, more importantly, Hope's subsequent decision. Liam reveals that if Brooke successfully executes her hostile takeover and secures the co-CEO seat, Hope will entirely abandon her plans to defect to the Logan brand. Instead, she will remain at Forrester Creations, utilizing her mother's newfound executive power to resurrect and permanently protect her Hope for the Future line. For Katie Logan Spencer, the realization of this shifting dynamic is nothing short of a waking nightmare. Katie has just risked everything, her relationships, her reputation, and her family bond, to launch this new fashion house, utilizing Eric Forster's designs in a move that has already drawn immense ire from Brooke and Ridge. She desperately needed Hope to serve as the creative visionary and lead designer for the Logan brand's future collections. Now, faced with the terrifying prospect of Hope remaining at Forster, Katie realizes her entire business model is in immediate existential jeopardy. Furthermore, Katie is acutely aware of her sister's ruthless capabilities. She knows that if Brooke assumes absolute power at Forster Creations, she will not hesitate to use the company's vast, global resources to crush the fledgling Logan brand into absolute oblivion. The corporate rivalry has suddenly transformed into a deeply personal, high-stakes game of survival. Bill Spencer, a man who thrives on absolute control, calculated risks, and predictable variables, suddenly finds himself navigating a chaotic, unpredictable battlefield where his usual, heavy-handed tactics may not apply. Bill has spent the past several weeks acting as Katie's impenetrable shield, confidently assuring her that they could weather any storm the Foresters sent their way. But Liam's revelation changes the entire mathematical equation of their rivalry. Bill understands that a Forster Creations led by a vengeful, empowered Brooke Logan is a completely different beast than one led by a distracted Ridge and an arrogant Steffy. Brooke possesses an intimate, terrifying knowledge of the Logan family's vulnerabilities, and she has the strategic mind to exploit them flawlessly. Bill and Katie are forced into an emergency, panic-stricken strategy session, realizing that their celebration was entirely premature and that they are now staring down the barrel of a massive, well-funded corporate assault. The interconnected web of these complex, historical relationships transforms what could be a simple corporate restructuring storyline into a deeply personal, emotionally devastating bloodbath. Every single character involved in this sprawling narrative is fighting for something far more profound than a corner office or a title on a business card. Steffi is fighting for her father's validation and the preservation of a legacy she believes is exclusively hers. Ridge is fighting a losing battle to maintain peace in a family that is fundamentally addicted to conflict. Brooke is fighting for respect, parity, and the ultimate protection of her daughter's creative soul. Hope is fighting for her independence and the survival of her life's work. And Katie and Bill are fighting for the very existence of their new empire against a sister who holds the power to destroy them. As the narrative pushes forward, the tension is palpable, thick enough to cut with a pair of designer fabric shears. The audience is left breathless, eagerly anticipating the inevitable, explosive collision of these massive egos. Will Steffi's childish demands and emotional blackmail force Ridge to crush his wife's ambitions, thereby destroying his marriage? Or will Ridge finally find the backbone to discipline his daughter, paving the way for Brooke's triumphant, terrifying ascent to power? And how will the Logan brand survive the impending onslaught if Hope refuses to be their savior? The board is set, the pieces are moving with lethal precision, and absolutely no one in Los Angeles will escape the fallout of this spectacular, unprecedented corporate war. The drama is intoxicating. The stakes have never been higher, and we will be watching every